Happy wonderful Wednesday. Welcome back to history class. Today we're going to be looking at section 1 again in your history text. That's pages 300 to 305. We're going to start by going over the answers for page 122 in your packet. You should have completed that yesterday. And then we're going to talk about page 123. So if you need to, pause the video, make sure you get your textbook out, get your packet, page 122, and then we'll turn to page 123. All right, you ready to get started? Let's do it. So we have page 122 in your packet, looks like this. And yesterday I gave you the first answer. Remember, this is like Jeopardy where you write the questions and then the answers are the key terms. So the first one was, what is a city-state? And a city-state is a polis. Question number 2 is citizens. Your question should have dealt with somewhat to the fact that they have legal rights within the city-state. So my question is, who have legal rights in a city-state? If you got something different, maybe just add that one, jot it off to the side in the margin for yourself. That way it'll help you when you're studying and when you're taking your ancient Greek test. Next one, number 3, where were temples and public buildings located in Greek city-states? Who knows the answer? Who's got it? It is the Acropolis. And number 4, we need to put a question here for politics. Now, I know some of my friends out there want to join politics someday, right? Valdivia for president? I know I've heard that before. All right, so what is politics? It is the art of practicing government. So Valdivia, if you want to be president, you better get to practicing that art of government. What is the art of practicing government? Again, if that's not your answer, make sure you jot it in the margin off to the side. That way it'll help you when you're studying. And then our last one, what term means rule by the best people? That is aristocracy. And remember, you had to be born into the aristocracy. You could not buy your way in. You could not just say, I want to be an aristocrat. No, you had to be born into it. That's hereditary. So once they had children, their children became aristocrats, and so on and so forth. It's all in the family together. All right, now today, as we go back through the text, we're going to be doing page 123, which is the next page in your packet. And this page is all about cause and effect. So I kind of hinted at that yesterday on the video. I told you we're going to be looking at this section, looking at what caused the major events in ancient Greek history. So they've given us either a cause or an effect, and we need to figure out vice versa, what is the other one. So before we do this page, I wanted to give you an example of cause and effect. So I have an example here on my paper. Let me see, let me pull it in front of the camera here for you. So the first one is, I didn't study, so I failed my history test. And I just noticed, oh my goodness, I spelled history wrong. I'm the history teacher and I forgot how to spell history. Oh, we can't have that. Let's fix it. Goodness gracious. I know you guys would be catching me on that if we were in class too. So I didn't study, so I failed my history test. So what is the cause? The cause is I didn't study, and the effect is I failed my history test. So because I didn't study, I failed my history test. So a lot of times that'll help you with the cause. If you say, because I did this or this happened, then this happened. So hopefully that helps you kind of narrow down between the two. So the next one, I have an example here for you at the bottom on the vice versa. It says, I reread the chapter, studied my notes, and played Kahoot, so I aced my history test. And you know who you are, if that's you. So what was the effect of rereading the chapter, studying your notes, playing Kahoot a million times so that you had all the answers memorized? Well, the effect was you aced your history test. So because I did all these things, I aced my history test. And speaking of acing the history test, I have been grading these ancient China tests as they come in. And I wanted to give a couple of you a shout out because some of you did ace your history test. So here we go. Ready? I'm going to call out the names, the Cougars who aced. That means, and I'm talking 100%, not, high 90s, awesome, great job. Maybe you missed one or two, but I'm talking 100%, guys. We had a high amount of you get 100%. So here we go. Izzy, congratulations, 100%. Jack, good job. Caitlin, nice work. Nathaniel, good job. Matthew and Carter, and Helena and Nathan V. And some of you I know haven't turned them in yet, so they haven't been graded. Maybe you got 100 too, but I'm talking the ones I've graded by now. So good job, Cougars. That was a lot of you. Next, we have the Tigers. In the Tiger class, I have Ben and Nathan A. 100%. Good job, guys. And Maya. Wonderful work, Maya. 100% on your Ancient China history test. Good job. And then I've got my Jaguars. So in the Jaguar class, I have James. Good job, 100%. And Oliver, nice work. Amber, awesome. And that's it for my Jaguars for now. And again, I know some of you haven't turned it in yet. If you're still working on making it perfect, that's fine. Turn it in when you're ready, and I will give you guys back your grades. All right, so keep up the good work. All of you are doing such a great job. Hang in there. You're doing great. Keep it up. Let's take a look back at section 1 of Greek history and think about these causes and effects as we look at this unit. So let's read the directions first. Use what you read about the rise of Greek city-states to complete the table below. For each cause given, write the effect. For each effect given, write the cause. And you should have read this section yesterday. If you didn't, you might want to go and do that before you watch this video. All right, number 1. Cause. The mountains isolated lowland Greek communities. Let's look in our text. Let's go back and find where does it talk about the mountains isolating the Greek communities. And I want to make sure I've got my little answer key here. All right, so it's going to be here in this geography section, right? So we're looking for where does it talk about how the mountains isolated them. We're going to go to page 301. Right here, first sentence on the page. Mainland Greece is divided by mountain ranges. So now that I found that, I can probably find the effect somewhere nearby. Let's keep reading. Between these ranges lie narrow valleys and small plains. That just gives me a detail about it. The mountains were good for grazing sheep and goats, but they were too steep and rocky for farming. Less than 1/4 of the land could be used to grow crops. The only fertile land was in the lowland valleys and plains. Here, people settled in farming communities. Now, I've read a few things that I could probably write down as the effect, but I think I want to keep reading and see if I find something better. The mountains isolated these lowland communities. Oh, okay, so they're isolated. So a fiercely independent spirit developed among the Greeks. They never attempted to unite under a single government. In fact, Greek cities were often at war with one another. So the effect that I've written down on my sheet is that they did not attempt to unite. You might write that. You might write they were often at war with one another. There's a few things you could put in there, but I am going to write the Greek cities never attempted to unite. They didn't want to have a national government like in the United States, how all the states have joined together. In the Greek city-states, they were not joining together. They were staying separate. All right, so now our next part here, we're given the effect. So this one might be a little bit more tricky because we're given the effect, and then we have to find what caused that to happen. Like when we studied, we found out the cause of that, or I'm sorry, when we got 100%, the cause of that was all the studying and all the work that we did. All right, so the effect is the Greeks became skilled sailors and merchants. Okay, so let's take a look at our text. We're looking for where does it tell us that they became skilled sailors and merchants? The surrounded by sea heading might give us a clue. Let's try there. Although mountain ranges isolated communities, the sea brought contact with the wider world. The Greeks became skillful sailors and merchants. Oh, there we go. We have it, right? So what was the cause of them becoming skillful sailors and merchants? Well, it was all that water that they were surrounded by. Let's keep reading and see what other information we find. Greek fishing and trading ships crisscrossed the waters of the Mediterranean Sea to the south, the Aegean Sea to the east, and the Ionian Sea to the west. This led to contact with the older, more complex cultures of North Africa and Asia. All right, so the way that they became skillful sailors, the reason they became skillful sailors and merchants is because Greece is surrounded by sea. And that was our heading for that section. All right, let's look at the next one, number 3. We've got a cause again. Greece's Mediterranean climate is ideal for deep-rooted crops. So we're now going to look for information about their crops. Let's look here in this Mediterranean climate section. Greece has a Mediterranean climate with mild, wet winters and hot, dry summers. The lack of rain made it difficult to grow shallow-rooted crops such as grains, which need frequent watering. So the mainland Greeks were always searching for foreign sources of grain. On the other hand, the Mediterranean climate was ideal for growing deep-rooted plants, such as olive trees and grapevines. Olive oil and wine became important trade goods and brought in wealth. So because they had an ideal climate for growing olive and grapevines, the olive oil and wine became important for trade for them because they needed to trade that to get grain, which they couldn't grow. So we're going to say our effect of their climate growing deep-rooted crops is olive oil and wine became important for trade. You might put grain in parentheses there. They needed to trade for grain because they couldn't grow it. All right, next we're given an effect again. Let's see what it says. The Minoans influenced the civilization of the Mycenaeans on the mainland. All right, I think we're going to have to turn the page for this one. Let's go to page 302. Here's where it talks about that Minoan civilization. But if we go back, we see what we're looking specifically for is that they influenced the civilization of the Mycenaeans. So we might want to look here where it talks about the Mycenaeans. And look, our first sentence is, the Minoans influenced a civilization that developed among Greek speakers on mainland Greece. This civilization, known as Mycenaean, developed around 1600 BC. I think that's it, right? So we're looking for what is the cause of them being able to influence. Well, they were a highly developed, highly advanced society, which is what we read about in this paragraph here. So because they were such a highly developed society, they had that influence on this other civilization known as Mycenaean. So our cause is they develop, they then go and influence others, right? So that's our cause. Highly advanced Minoan civilization developed on Crete. All right, number 5. Again, we're given an effect. Greece enters a dark age, and mainland Greeks migrate across the Aegean. Okay, so I remember when I read through the text that I saw dark age on the following page. So in the dark age here, it says, with the fall of the Mycenaeans. Now hold on. It seems like it's already started here. Maybe we need to go back and read before, because remember, we're looking for the cause. Let's go back. So down here at the very last paragraph before page 303, it says, eventually the Mycenaean kingdoms grew weak. Then, around 1100 BC, this civilization was destroyed by newcomers from the north, known as Dorians. So as we continue to read through this Dark Age section, what we find is that the Dorians destroying their civilization is what led to the Dark Ages. That's the cause. That's what happened first. So that's what we're going to write on our cause. The Dorians destroy the Mycenaean civilization. In that dark age, they're not reading. They lose so much during that period. They lose the ability to read and write. That's why it's so important for you guys to continue to read and write while you're at home, friends. We don't want you losing that ability. Oh, that would be such a loss. So keep your reading up. All right, let's look at the next one on our graphic organizer here. It says we're looking for a cause again. The effect is that the Greeks try to live up to the ideals of bravery and honor expressed in these stories. So because the effect lists these stories, that makes me think the cause might have something about the stories. And if we go back on page 303, we're going to see there that there are some stories, the Iliad and the Odyssey, that become very, very popular. So let's look for information on those to see if we can find that effect. Now, as you scan the page, you might see this very last sentence here. The ancient Greeks tried to live up to the ideas of bravery, strength, and honor expressed in Homer's work. So that is our effect. So the cause would be referencing to the Iliad and the Odyssey. Okay, so Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. Whoops, wrong one. All right. Now our next one, we're given the cause. The area and population of a polis were generally small. Before we go there, though, I just want to point out, because you will need this information for your quiz, this section here that talks about the Trojan War, so it's a legend of the Trojan War. So we don't know if it in fact did happen or not, but we saw that the warriors sailed across the sea to attack Troy. And in that 10-year battle, the Greeks ended up tricking the Trojans with that large horse. So they built this humongous horse. They presented it to the Trojan army like it was a gift to them, but instead there were Greek soldiers hiding inside who ended up conquering the city of Troy and burning it to the ground. So again, it's a legend. We don't know if in fact it is exact true or not. Some historians say yes, it is. Some historians say no, it isn't. But you're going to want to know that information for your quiz. So just want to make sure that you read that and you saw that. All right, now back to our question. We're looking at polis. We remember from reading the text, it talks about that on page 304. So let's look again what it asks for. I'm going to close my email. Sorry, guys, it keeps dinging. Okay, the cause. The area of population of a polis were generally small. So what is the effect of that polis being small? Let's see if we can find it. By the time Homer's epics were composed, each Greek community had begun to organize itself into a polis, or city-state. The city-state became one of the most important features of Greek culture. The Greeks created such city-states everywhere they settled. All right. Now, as we read about the polis down here in this section, what we're going to find is that because the city-states are small, all the citizens would be able to gather together to make decisions in a single group. So it wasn't large and spread out where they had to go through this arduous process to get everybody's opinion to make a decision. They just pull everybody together and they would make decisions as a group. Okay, so that is our cause, and we see that down here in the last paragraph of the polis section. I'm sorry, that's our effect. Our effect. Because they were small, all citizens could gather to make decisions as a group. All right, and our last one, here we go. Self-government was a feature of most city-states, but only citizens could vote. So because only the citizens could vote, what is the effect of that? So let's take a look. Let's go back to our text again. And I want to make sure I find the spot. I marked it in my text where we need to read. All right, we're going to be looking on page 305. So we're going to scan through this section here, and let's point a few things out. You do need to know your key terms for your quiz. So make sure that you're really paying attention to those key terms as you read. So the Acropolis, we saw, that's public buildings and marble temples located in that area of the city. Politics, that's the art of practicing government. And then aristocracy was a hereditary class of rulers. So again, they're ruling by birthright, and it meant rule by the best people. They thought that they were the best. All right, but as we continue reading, we see our cause here where it talks about the self-government feature. So even though self-government was a feature of most city-states, not everyone was allowed to participate in making decisions. Women, slaves, and foreigners were all excluded from the process. So we see that even though the citizens do have the right to make decisions about what happens in that city-states, some people are excluded from that decision-making process in the beginning of Greece history. And that would be women, slaves, and any foreigners, any people who weren't from Greece originally. So they're left out of that decision-making process. Typo. I'm trying to go too fast. Okay. All right, so who held the real political power in these Greek city-states then? Well, we saw that citizens held the power, right? It wasn't a king or an oligarchy. The citizens held the power. And the way that they held that power was by making laws and important decisions. But we see some citizens were excluded. So what I've written here, and your answer could be the same as mine. It could be a little bit different if you want to put it in your own words. I said citizens held power in the city-states. They made laws and important decisions, but women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded from that decision-making process. All right, so that is our first section of ancient Greek history. Pretty interesting, pretty fascinating to see how it relates even to America as well, with that democracy principle falling into play here in ancient Greece. Now, what I would like you guys to do next is you're going to practice your Kahoot quiz for your Kahoot practice for your quiz. Your quiz is going to be on Friday, so you do need to take a look at that Kahoot, make sure that you're reviewing the answers. Now, this is optional, and you don't have to play Kahoot if you don't want to. You can just take your quiz on Friday, which is fine. But if you do the Kahoot, like that's part of that cause and effect piece, right? If you play the Kahoot, it'll set you up to do well on the quiz because it helps you get those answers in your brain. So I would definitely recommend you play Kahoot today. I am going to pull up the pin so you can see it. This was also emailed home. Ancient Greece Section 1 review. I'm going to view our challenge info here so you can have the pin code. It is 01-73376. And I see a few people who have already played. I'm guessing that's Naomi B there. So again, you can play these as many times as you want. It helps you to prepare for the quiz. In the past with the China ones, I was taking the Kahoot scores as your quiz score if you wanted to do that instead. For this one and for Greece, we're not doing that anymore, okay? Because what I found was people would go back in and they would like correct their answers, which I've seen Ethan and Caleb do on their Kahoots too, but it doesn't show me that on the report. So, you know, if you went back in and you corrected your answers and you got 100%, it's not showing me that. So then I was entering your grade as what I see. So just to avoid any confusion, Kahoot is just for practice now. It's optional. You don't have to do it, but it will help you do well in the quiz. And then no history tomorrow, because tomorrow we have our Zoom party. So I'll see you tomorrow on Zoom. And then Friday, you need to do your Section 1 quiz. And I have a video for you to watch, which I'll load to the channel. Okay, so take a picture of that quiz, email that to me when you get it completed. These workbook pages you don't need to send to me. Remember, we're waiting until the very end of the unit, and then you can send me all the pages. Okay, so the quiz I want, the workbook pages, I don't want those yet. And then Kahoot is for practice. Okay, I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.